Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker here to look at teas. And you know, I was recently actually just got back less than a week ago, a little more than a week ago by the time this airs, from a trip to Beijing where a lot of the tea harvests had just come in and were on the shelves, so to speak. And one of those teas was a Tea Guanyin, which we're going to be talking a little bit about today. So it's kind of fitting that there were so many, you came across so many places just talking about their newly or freshly arrived Tea Guanyin, and we've got one to look at today. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Gaiwan here. I'm going to add enough of my leaf so I cover that basic inch to inch and a half. You know, a lot of some vendors, some gongfu tea preparers will put in a lot more than that, and so that by the time those leaves unfurl, and talk a little about how they're wrapped and rolled, but when they unfurl, they're actually resting, piling up above the edge of the top edge here, so you have to kind of pack it down with the lid. But I'm going to add some water, again slowly, so it kind of swirls around those leaves and loosens them up. Nothing's resting. None of the leaves are, partially dry and floating on the top. You don't want that. Get this water out of the way. Get the lid on here. I put enough water so that a little bit of water sticks out above the rim. That looks good. That prevents any air from getting in there and changing the color, making it kind of oxidizing the liquor. So while that's sitting, introduce this tea, talk a little bit about it. This is from GrandTea's. This is the King of TGY. So that name, or I've often, if I recall correctly, there's a similar name that comes from the Chinese as Guanyin, meaning TGY, the Guanyin Wang, the king, the Wang. So that's where some of that probably comes from if you were searching for this name in Chinese. You can find 25 grams available for $6.50 on GrandTea's website, and they come in packs. I'm going to approximate this as about 7.5 grams in this. Don't quote me on that, but it's been vacuum sealed so that it wrinkles up, and you have to cut it open and break the seal. You want to let the tea kind of breathe and wake up a little bit after you cut it open, usually, as much as possible. I've let this open up just a little bit to kind of breathe a little bit before I add it to my Gaiwan here. This is from Fujian province, one of the homes of Tea Guanyin. There are Taiwanese Tea Guanyins as well. This is a 2010 autumn harvest. There can be a spring and an autumn harvest often. This is a greener, so it's not as roasted as some others. Some tea drinkers, this brings up a note, some tea drinkers prefer more of a roasted type of Tea Guanyin, and some tea experts, Chinese tea experts, will say that a green or greener Tea Guanyin like this is not as good for your stomach. They recommend for older people, and older, I'm going to estimate 50 and above, should be drinking more roasted, more of those darker type of teas, because the greener ones don't sit well on your stomach and can actually cause, according to the Chinese medicinal aspect, can cause some stomach issues. Okay, so looking at this, let's go ahead and talk a little about this dry leaf though. One thing about a greener Tea Guanyin, a greener oolong like this, is that you will come across a lot of rich, often strong floral notes. Like on this one, I'm getting some lilac. I'm getting a little bit of the English laurel type smell coming off. Not as some of the Tea Guanyins like this are almost too rich, too heavy in that floral aspect. This one so far is nice. It's got good aromas, but it's not overwhelming. So in my mind, that is a positive note. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull out a few of these leaves just to kind of look at them. You will notice there are some rich, bright green colors here. Talking about the way that these are rolled, they're wrapped up, crumpled up like paper wads. Some of them look to be more than one leaf rolled together, but there are also some smaller pieces that probably just one leaf. You have some bright, again, bright colors, and then you get over towards a darker, lusher, more lush, richer green, darker green type color. I'm not seeing, at this point, I don't see a lot of stem of the leaf sticking out of these crumples, these wads, these balled up shapes. Not a lot, of course, you're not drawing out a lot of oils at this when they're in this stage, so there's not a lot to talk about as far as a gloss or a sheen that's coming off of those. But can move on, and this should have had enough time to steep. It even had a seal that was kind of created as that water was protected around the top of the lid there. Now ready to pour. Get a nice opening, ready to pour. So we get a nice smooth pour. Sometimes it's more convenience of a larger leaf like a Wulong in a Gaiwan is you are not as likely, you're able to create a larger opening and you're less likely to get little pieces of leaf to fall out of that opening as compared to, say, steeping a delicate green tea in a Gaiwan like this. So I'm going to set the liquor aside there for just a moment and talk a little bit about this wet leaf. One more time. That floral aspect is still a little bit there, but it's come across more, it's getting a little bit more of a lima bean type, a beanie aspect. Not, but having said that, sometimes I get almost like a lightly baked or nearly overcooked, slightly toasted aspect of a lima bean. This one has none of that, so there's the heat elements, any kind of roasted elements are very faint, very light, if at all there. This one's got more, like I said, a fresher, greener lima bean type of smell. Cooked lima bean, still a little bit cooked, but not a intense heat aspect to that. Let me put that back, pull out a few of these leaves because you are getting some bright, larger leaf portions, not a fully intact leaf, but mostly intact. Ragged, rough edges, not the natural jagged edge kind of teeth that you see on the full shape of the leaf, but you do see some of that kind of jagged edge here and there. The rest probably got a little bit damaged in the rolling process. Let me pull out, here's a set. I want to make sure I found the set just to kind of give us an example. A leaf here, another leaf portion, not a fully intact leaf, a little bit of oxidation, a little bit of browning taking place there. There's actually a little bit of stem here where it looks like there was a tip or a needle that should have been there but got broken off at some point. The stem here where they're connected, very smooth, clean cut. When I say, I would say there was some device. This could have been hand plucked or hand picked, but there were scissors or a knife that made that cut. It wasn't like they used their fingers to pinch it off. This was, again, there was manual labor, but not necessarily the tearing, plucking action. There was a cutting process there. Okay, one more leaf just to kind of show this one's nearly fully intact because you do see the very stem of the connecting stem of the leaf there, all the way to the very rounded tip there as well. Actually, this is a very broad, round looking leaf. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside now and move on to talk about the liquor. Give that a pour as well. Still a little bit of lilac with the lima bean there, so it's a sweet green type of smell. fairly good clarity. I mean, you can see the particulates floating through there, but it's not dull. It's still got a good brightness to it. That should be good. Generally, I try to note that with a tiguanine, a lightly roasted tiguanine like this, you often get better aromas, better flavors as it cools. So you want it slightly cooler when you taste. One more time here. Okay, aromas. Again, there's the lima bean, the lilac there. They're not overpowering. They're present. They're balanced. Combined with the brothy, the texture there, you do get a gentle, soft coating. It doesn't fall off and become almost acidic. It doesn't become acidic. It doesn't get this kind of watery type of thinness to it. Fairly gentle, fairly light. The aftertaste still carries on some of that kind of floral aspect. Builds with a little bit of a vegetal, that lima bean type of, or sweet pea sweetness in there. I'm drawing on a little bit of, it's kind of tapering off now, the aftertaste. It's getting a little bit of watery, starting to now. So that is present. It does have a fairly gentle aftertaste. But looking at this tea from the front to the back, the taste, the aromas, fairly consistent. Not only are they consistent, they're balanced with the texture. They carry on and through to the aftertaste. They don't become unsettling. This tasting and off-camera tastings I did previously are fairly consistent. There was a nice. It was harder to, like, I really steep this for a longer time to draw some out and see what would happen. It did not get overly astringent or harsh. Of course, it did get a little heavier and darker in the color as well of the broth, the liquor. But overall, smooth, gentle, rounded. So as I look at this tea, I would give it a little bit higher. I'd probably give it a 91. As far as tiguanines go, this one also, personally for me, and this is going to be depending on your experience, your metabolism, what you've eaten, that kind of thing, this one sat fairly well on my stomach. It did not get too heavily green, harsh on my stomach. So come back to Walker Tea Review, where you can explore this tea, get some clues about this most recent harvest and upcoming harvests as well.